Almost every pool has a hearing. That tournament's supposed to and all the solar activities,
Good afternoon. I will call the March 7th, 2023 meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. The time is 3 p.m. The first thing is to approve the agenda. And Board, if it pleases you, I would like to move item 12, departmental reports, up to item 7B, special presentations. So the order would be commemorative resolution for Mr. Glenn Micklin, then the presentation on software project update, and then the Economic Development Authority. If that's acceptable, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Very good. All right, if you would please rise and join us for the invocation led by Mr. Wade, and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, we come to you today to first off give you thanks for this beautiful day you've provided us. Lord, we ask your hand over us now as we deal with the matters of the county, and we ask for your guidance today. We ask for your protection over law enforcement, our emergency services, and our military, Lord, and just thank you for everything you've done. In your name, amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the next item on our agenda is citizen comment. I do not believe there was anyone signed up. Is there anyone present in the audience that would like to speak? Yes, sir. Please come up, state your name and district of residence, please.
Hello, Board. Thank you very much. Sam Soger, District 2. I'd like to please speak in favor of giving the registrar's office more office space or an additional, a bigger space, preferably near the courthouse. They have an important job to do. They have more and more stuff to do all the time, that they're required to do. So if the board could consider that, please, giving Fran Brown more space to do her job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Board, is there any discussion? If not, is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we're just going to roll with it. Consent agenda, there's a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda by Mr. Ayers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Just for the public, I skipped item 5. We'll go back to that. Ordinance first read on the erosion and sediment control, and that is Mr. Popovich. I apologize.
Yes, sir. Well, it's okay. You don't normally want to hear the attorney speak anyway. But having said that, this is a minor edit to the erosion and sediment control ordinance. As it was originally written, it was written to reference the Commonwealth Attorney's Office handling these civil matters when in fact it should be the county attorney's office because we handle all the civil matters, not the Commonwealth. So this is just a minor modification.
Okay. Board, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board direct staff to advertise ordinance number 2023-3 for a public hearing at the March 21st meeting.
Okay, motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Very good. All right, we did the consent. All right, next item on the agenda is a special presentation, a commemorative resolution for Mr. Glenn Micklin, and that is going to be Mr. Turner Perro, Chair of the Amherst County Service Authority. Mr. Perro?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you think I could be joined by Mr. Micklin, Ms. Micklin, and Mr. Hopkins? I'll just. You- Whichever way you're comfortable facing. You want to look at, how about you look that way? That's right. Members of the Board of Supervisors, I just want to really commend Glenn here for his work. I'm going to read this resolution here in just a second. But the length of service that you had for Amherst County and in the industry is really an example for so many people. Water, people don't think about water production. It comes out of your tap 24/7, 24 hours of the day, 7 days a week, weekends, holidays. We expect it to be on. But it's because of professionals like Glenn that makes it so. Because that day that you wake up and you turn on your spigot and you're on public water and it doesn't come out is an awful, awful day. It's professionals like him that make sure that water is just sent to you, clean, healthy, meeting the requirements for drinking water. And it's what separates us as a nation from many other nations across the world, that clean drinking water. And not only that, he supervised returning that water back to the environment where it's reclaimed. And in most cases, even cleaner than when he got it from. So it's really remarkable and a real testament to all the professionals in the water and wastewater businesses, but especially for 47 years and 8 months in the business. That is remarkable. So Glenn, I want to thank you. And sir, here's the resolution I'm going to read today. Be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Amherst County Service Authority, County of Amherst, Virginia, that the Board of Directors of Amherst County Service Authority, County of Amherst, Virginia, offers sincere gratitude and appreciation to Mr. Glenn Micklin, Service Authority Operations Manager, upon his retirement after 47 years, 8 months of service to the Service Authority and its customers and the county and its citizens. Whereas Mr. Micklin joined the Service Authority in June 1975, I was one. Actually 11 months, and is retiring February 28th, 2023, after 47 years, 8 months of service. And whereas Mr. Micklin began with the Service Authority as a water treatment operator apprentice and advanced through the organization hierarchy to senior operator in 1986, maintenance specialist in 1990, Assistant Operations Manager in 1991, and Operations Manager in 1999. And whereas Mr. Micklin worked in all areas of the Service Authority, including 14 and a half years in treatment operations at the Henry L. Lanham Jr. Water Filtration Plant, 10 years in water and wastewater infrastructure construction, reading meters, and operating and maintaining sewage pump stations and wastewater treatment plants, and the last 23 years as the number 3 person in the Service Authority's organizational hierarchy. And whereas Mr. Micklin progressed through the state licensure requirements to achieve his Class 3, 2, and 1 licenses in both water treatment operations and wastewater treatment operations, maintained his licensure throughout continuing education, and achieved numerous other certifications in management, supervision, leadership, and other training that benefited the Service Authority. And whereas Mr. Micklin has excellent mechanical aptitude and developed additional talents in plumbing, carpentry, and electricity, which he applied to his work in the Service Authority. And whereas Mr. Micklin participated as operations manager in all areas of Service Authority operations, management, and administration, including but not limited to construction, crew management, inventory management, water and wastewater infrastructure, asset management, human relations, staff hiring, training, supervision, management and evaluation, succession planning, budget planning and management, capital investment planning and implementation, contractor and consultant management, and much, much more. And whereas Mr. Micklin was also instrumental in county solid waste collection and disposal operations when such operations were under the purview of the Service Authority, assisted in the closure of 2 old county landfills, their replacement with a new solid waste disposal facility, and establishment of the first convenience and recycling centers in Amherst County. And whereas Mr. Micklin coached the Dixie Youth Baseball in Amherst County for over 30 years and participated significantly in the creation of 2 baseball fields at the Nelson Middle School. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of the Directors of the Amherst County Service Authority, County of Amherst, Virginia, that on behalf of the customers of the Amherst County Service Authority and its citizens of Amherst County, the Board of Directors of the Amherst County Service Authority hereby expresses its sincere sincere appreciation and gratitude to Mr. Glenn Micklem for his exceptional services and wishes him well in all his future endeavors. Sir, you are a role model to all. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Farrow. All right, moving on is a update on software project by Miss Jackie Vire. You do not look like Miss Jackie Vire.
I tell you, that's a hard act to follow, and I'm certainly not Jackie. I am Randy Grubb, and I am Chief Technologist with Virtual IT, and the county hired me a while back to manage the software implementation project. And so today I just wanted to give you an update on that project, let you know where we are, let you know where we're going, and answer any questions that you might have. Just kind of a reminder, the county made the decision to go out to RFP to replace the existing BAI financial and tax billing system. RDA Systems was selected as the vendor to replace BAI in June of 2022, and then our project began in earnest in July of 2022. This project timeline just kind of shows you kind of where we are. Our project is really 3 phases. The first phase is our finance, HR, payroll. Second is our treasurer, commissioner, tax billing. And the third phase will be our CAMA replacement and upgrade. And so I'm going to give you a little more detail about those phases, but you can see that we are our plan right now with the first phase is to go live with that in this coming July, and then after that, we'll begin the transition for the tax billing component, which will begin in September timeframe and continue into April of 2024. In terms of the goals of this first phase, the first item there is to implement RDA's financial module, which will replace our current general ledger, accounts payable, and procurement module, which is part of BAI. We'll also implement an interface between that financial system, the new financial system, and the school's financial system, which is known as LINK. We will implement RDA's workforce management module, which will replace the existing human resources and payroll module that is a part of BAI. We will also implement an interface between the Employee Navigator Benefits Administration application, the Time Clock Plus application, and RDA's human resources and payroll modules. And then item 4 there is also taking data that has evolved over the last many, many years and try to clean that data up as we put it into the new system. So we're putting clean data into a new system and not data that has evolved over the years. That's probably the biggest lift of this project. Phase 2 will focus on implementing the revenue management module, which will support tax billing and collections used heavily by the treasurer and commissioner, and to implement an interface between tax billing and our existing CAMA system, which supports real estate assessment. And then another phase, which will be phase 3, will be to actually replace that CAMA system because the current vendor, their situation has changed, and so we will be looking for either a replacement or an upgrade to that CAMA system. And ultimately, the last goal will be to sunset the BAI system and the IBM iSeries platform that it runs on. That will be the final phase of the project. A couple key decisions that have been made along the way. The county uses Employee Navigator along with a benefit consultant to administer employee benefits. The decision was made to keep that tool and to interface it to RDA's system. The decision was made to use Time Clock Plus, which is used for time and leave management, to keep that application and interface it to RDA. There's some other smaller decisions like changing our employee personnel ID numbering. The decision was also made for the schools to continue to use their existing system, which is called Link at this time. They evaluated whether to stay with that system or to move to RDA with the county and made the decision to stay with Link at this time. That decision may be revisited at a later date. The go live for our financials was originally the end of December, but due to some challenges that we encountered with bandwidth for the project, that was moved to July, and that resulted in the go live for tax being moved to April. I already mentioned the integration between the RDA system and the school's Link system. We just finished nailing down how that's going to work. We do have a outstanding decision, which is the future of our CAMA platform. We are in the process of gathering information from the new vendor that acquired the existing vendor to understand what our options are, and then there'll be a decision forthcoming with respect to that strategy. Cost overview, the cost has really not changed. It is exactly what we presented to you when the contract was accepted. The only thing that has changed is that line item you see there for the CAMA upgrade replacement. Right now, we're expecting that could be as much as $100,000. Even with that additional expenditure, we're still well within the original budget of the ERP replacement, and so there's no concern about exceeding that original budget at this point. To give you an idea of what's going to be coming, you know, I like for you to hear this because I know you speak to different members of the county's departments. And I just want to give you some situational awareness. We've got a busy couple of months coming up. These projects are not easy, and they're hard on the employees, and they've got to continue to do their day job while they're working on this system implementation. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Right now, we're working to finalize the integration strategy with the school system. We're working to import data out of the existing BAI system into the new system. We're working to finish this system setup and configuration. We're working to finish custom project work to implement the integration between the school system and the county system. We're working to finish setup in areas like POs, and we'll be doing training, parallel testing, and then ultimately going live in July of 2023. So a lot of work between now and July that we're going to be seeing occur. I love this chart. You know, this is pretty much the life I live. I've been doing this for about 30 years. And so, you know, I go through a lot of these projects, but it's helpful to know where your folks are in terms of your county employees right now. You know, when you start a project like this, it's overwhelming. And so there's, you know, you go through kind of a state of shock, you go through a state of denial that it's really going to happen, then you realize it's going to happen. And then you get to a point of insecurity. And so the more detail we get into the employees that are having to deal with this system and deal with this upgrade, you know, they're going to go through a state of insecurity. However, over the next couple of months, we're going to be coming out of that, and they're going to get comfortable, and they're going to start to feel more comfortable with the system, how to use the system, and realize that, it's really a bright future ahead of us. But I just want to make you aware of that because, you hear a lot of things coming out of projects like this because people have a lot of challenges ahead of them, and it's not easy. And so I just want to make sure you understand that, but I also want to make sure you understand that for any project like this, there's always that up curve, and we're headed there. I've never managed a project that hasn't ended up at the top of that curve on the upside, and this one will be no different. A couple of other things that I wanted to mention. The organization and just contemporary technology and information systems has increased the rate of change. And so the days of, implementing a new system and then not having anything change for 20 years, we are not going to be in that state anymore. It will be a constant state of change. Our world in general is pretty much a constant state of change, as you know, and systems will be no different. And that's just something that the staff will learn to deal with and will get comfortable with. These new systems are also making us rethink the way we're doing business today, and it's giving us an opportunity to rethink who's doing it and what they're doing. And so, we're continuing to challenge the folks that are responsible today to make sure that we're doing things the right way, and is there opportunity for improvement. So that's definitely part of this. There will be a necessity for change in responsibilities. We're making some changes and aligning things differently so that we're more in line with best practices in the world today. One concern that I have, and this is not unique to Amherst County, I deal with a lot of local governments, but the folks that are dealing with implementing this system, they're also, dealing with their day jobs, and, that they have to deal with both of those things. Amherst County's bench, if you will, in terms of the people that are responsible for some of these key things, is not very deep. And so, once again, some of these folks that are in these roles, they're having to deal with a lot in terms of, paying people, also learning a new payroll system, all of those types of things. So it is definitely a challenge for the staff when it comes to a project like this. I guess kind of my final point is that projects like this, the hard thing is to finish these projects on budget and on time. If they're not on time, then it costs more money to implement them. And so it is important that we hit the timelines that we have set forth. And once again, it is challenging, but once we get there, we'll be there and we'll be through the finish line. And so it is important, and I'm going to do everything I can that we stay committed to and we hit these dates that we've set at this point, because it's important that we do that. I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you have at this point. I know I threw a lot of information at you, but actually I tried to condense it as much as possible when it comes to a pretty complex project.
Board members, any questions?
I just have a comment or maybe something to look forward to in the future. It was a significant financial obligation to put this new system in place. We debated it for a couple of years before we funded it. So obviously going forward, and when this is implemented, it'd certainly be good to have a report back as to the changes made, how it's advantageous for the county, the things that are better now versus the past, to make sure we're getting a good return on our investment. So that would be what I would like to see maybe in the future, if that's possible, something to justify the amount of money that was spent on the new software. I know that it's hard and it's a work in progress, but like you said, when the plan is complete, I would hope that we would see a great amount of change in the positive direction.
Absolutely. I would expect two things. I would expect I would expect positive outcomes from that perspective in terms of providing more functionality to the staff as well as to citizens. And then, the other thing as far as keeping up is, implementing software that is supportable, and it keeps Amherst risk low. And so that's the other key aspect of this project, is to have a product that's supportable and that a vendor that we know is going to be around for a long time. So that's definitely an important part of this project.
Good. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, next item on the agenda is the annual report from the Economic Development Authority. Ms. Hanson and Mr. Proctor. Mr. Proctor.
Right, sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm Andrew Proctor, District 1, and I know many of you, but this is my first time speaking to you as our chairman of the EDA. Really appreciate you having us come deliver our annual report. And before I get into all the stuff, I think a couple of comments would be in order. One is, in my few years doing this, I would say successful economic development is really a team sport. And what I would say is Victoria and Lori do a fantastic job of being the glue that really know all the various departments that we work with to get stuff done, from the planning to the service authority to this board, to the legal support and the financial side of the county. They know the right people. They're so fast to jump on that and kind of connect those dots. And I think that is really going to point to a lot of the success that we've got here, is that you guys have been extremely supportive to the EDA, and we try to respect what you want us to get after, and that's what I'm going to show you today. Really, it's a whole lot of really exciting stuff. So the county has certainly made an investment in the EDA, and I think what you're going to see is, I'm not going to dwell on any one point too long, because you obviously know about a lot of these, but it's really cool to see what is going on in Amherst County, and that's really what we're going to cover. So, without reading everything on these slides, obviously our mission is to help grow the county economy, and we really focus on existing businesses and bringing in new businesses. That's really at the core our goal. We want to grow those, we want to help develop, because those will bring in new high-paying jobs, and we want to create a stable and diverse tax base. And really, we break that out into what we would simply call basic and non-basic industry. So basic would be, for example, your large manufacturing, right? Your Glad, or excuse me, your Clorox, Greif, Hackney, those type of groups, because they are making a product and then they are exporting that product outside of the county. They are, when they make an investment in their facilities, that's usually several $1 million. That means more jobs, because there's more people, because they're making more and growing their volume. Those pieces are where we focus, because economic development, you could very easily get scope creep. And there is a small team to get all this done, and there's only limited funds to go do it. So what we really try to focus is on that basic industry, because that drives the non-basic side, the service, the retail, all those pieces that are serving the people that have come here to do the jobs in those manufacturing piece. That doesn't mean we're not looking at the non-basic side. So there's a lot of work that the EDA does to partner with companies that are wanting to come in, think like the Starbucks that wanted to come in, right? There's a lot of work that we are doing to help encourage and do whatever we can to do that, but we really try to focus our incentives and things like that on the basic side of things. So I'm going to cover in the next few slides what some of those big rocks are that we've done in the last year. And I'm not going to go too deep, but you're welcome to interrupt me with any questions you've got. The multi-tenant building, we're showing it this year, but this has been a multi-year project. This has been a dream of the EDA for many years, actually. We were awarded the $3 million grant from the US EDA for a 4,500 square foot building. that'll be in the Amwon Commerce Center. We expected to create 45 jobs, or retain 24 jobs, and generate over $3 million in investment. At this point, in terms of that project, we've closed on the 1.25 financial on the bond for that. We've completed the design and engineering phase of it. And we're just now moving to construction this year. So we're getting close to the bid stages. We're crossing our fingers because we know construction costs have gone up a lot, but we will do the best we can and handle that kind of challenge if it comes when it comes. But this will give you a little rendering of what this building would look like. So there could be as many as 4 sections in this 4,500 square foot building. 3 10,000 and 1 15,000 square foot sections. And the idea is we're trying to be good stewards of the financials. We're not going to build every single one of these out because you never know what a tenant might actually need inside. So we will be finishing out a good portion of the 15,000 square foot one that includes an office space and that kind of thing. And then the other sections we can be finished out when the tenant comes and depending on what it is that suits their business model. The other piece here focusing, and really a lot of these are focused in the Commerce Center, is grading on Lot 4. So Lot 4 is our largest lot that can handle a 200,000 square foot building. But a lot of times companies don't want to come and jump on that unless the grading is taken care of. They can kind of get a better vision for how quickly they could move in, break ground, do their thing. So we've received a $225,000 grant with our match to go after that, and they have broken ground on the grading. And it's really exciting to see some nice muddy progress on that lot. Another exciting piece here is that Frank Good Builders, that many of you are probably aware of, been around a long time. They have acquired Lot 2, and they're planning to build a roughly $2 million, 10,000 square foot corporate headquarters. They see the county as an area for growth for them in their business, which I think is also good for our economic development of the county, in addition to them moving into this lot. S&S Trueball, they have basically outgrown their current space, and so they are interested in purchasing Lot 3 for a new corporate headquarters and additional assembly on that particular area. ITG's been around for quite a while. They leased this building from the EDA for many years, and they have now acquired this building, so that is a wholly their property on that particular section. And this just kind of gives you a little view, so just to kind of level set everybody on where everything is. The large white rectangular at the top is Stove Builders International, formerly Englander. They have an option on the lot beside them, the 3.09 acre lot for expansion. The multi-tenant is the one with the 45,000 square foot. You can see that one noted there. Lot 4, just underneath the white rectangular, is where the grading has commenced. And you can kind of see where the other various lots are. But I think the point of showing this is a lot of long efforts for many years. I'm just the speaker up here today, but this is years of boards of supervisors working with the EDA to drive this development. And the good news is we're starting to fill up the Commerce Center. The challenge is, where do we go after that? And so we're working on that. We just want you guys to be aware that we have a committee that is focused on that, thinking, is there a way to expand the current one? Do we need to look outside of that? Where would we go? What would be appropriate? But we definitely want to stay ahead of the game because hopefully we can fill these up and have the challenge of needing a new spot for more businesses. Transitioning a little bit and talking about the Dillard site. So I know you guys are aware of that. That is not what would become a next Commerce Center. This is thinking much bigger. This is where Governor Youngkin has been a huge proponent of economic development overall for the state. And this is really about how do you get these larger tracts of land and get them developed and available at the state level. Because when very large companies want to come in, they usually start at the state and ask, what have you got available in your state that's 100 acres or bigger? We want to be on the short part of that list. We want them to see Amherst County first. And so part of that is this particular area. And so we've gone out and gotten a grant to get after this and take it from tier 2 to tier 4 in terms of approval and ready to go. Basically tier 5, as I learned, is it's graded, right? So tier 4 means we're getting to the point we've done the geotechnical, You've looked at all the different permitting requirements. You've tried to figure out where everything might potentially go and get it to a point where basically someone says, okay, well, I would like to grade this and move forward. It's very expensive to get to Tier 4, but a very large company is going to want to see it already that far ready to go. So that's why we've invested in that. There are 2 lots. I'll jump to the next slide to show you. One of them would be 1.2 million square feet, and one would be about 400,000 square feet. That could be roughly 2,000 new jobs between the 2 lots when we can finally get this thing to off the ground. So you don't have to read this eye chart. You've probably seen it in the past, but just as a reminder, Lot B, which is on the right, is that smaller 400,000 square foot one, and Lot D, the larger one, is the 1.2 million square foot size. But I think the main thing to call out here, which is what makes this particular area very interesting to large manufacturing companies, is you can see a lot of the utilities that are already here. Rail is here, gas is here, you've got high transmission power here, and we'll touch on it in the next slide, but you're close to the bypass, and that's hard to find this type of utility structure that close to a 4-lane highway. So these are some of the things that really boosted up and helped Victoria really and Lori win the case to get this grant. I kind of mentioned this here already, but really this kind of calls out and also calls out why our governor is really focused on this. The fact that the state and the region has been missing out to some regional other states, and we don't want to be part of that anymore. We want to start winning these. So that's why we're focused on this particular site. This just gives you a little view. This is kind of roughly what the 1.2 million square foot building could look like. This just kind of gives you a rough idea, helps us try to explain that to prospective customers or interested parties in case they say, okay, what would something look like? We have something to show them here. And the same thing for the 400,000 square foot. So that's just those pieces. The other pieces are looking at how are we helping the businesses and the existing businesses in the county. And one of those is through our partnership with CVCC and the CT Career Coach Program. So we all know about labor challenges. We also know that there are not enough of the technical folks that are desperately needed by our local businesses to maintain and grow their businesses. And so we have invested with them in funding a career coach to help educate students in these career fields and keep that talent here in the county to help our businesses, because that's what they tell us that they are looking for. Additionally, the same sort of thing with our partnership with ITG. This is where really educating kids on fields in consumer science, IT support, services, and things of that nature. We've just had 8 complete the first round of this, and so we look forward to future rounds of this. And that's another thing that our companies in this area are telling us they need. So we're trying to keep that talent here. Finally, the CVTC, obviously this is a really complicated, huge one. It is really a regional thing. And really, Victoria's done a fantastic job of partnering very closely with the Lynchburg Regional Alliance. This one has lots of complications, but we really appreciate our local legislators who have gone to bat for us, helped us with the bond defeasance, and a lot of the other critical things that have been a challenge to moving this one forward. There's still a lot of work to be done here, and so this one still takes up a fair amount of time, but obviously it's really important for all of us because it is here in our county. I'm not going to read all everything on this slide and the next slide, but really those big rocks we called out are already a lot. But at the end of the day, the EDA is focused on involved in all these other areas too, from the Madison Heights Town Center planning to working with the Morecambe Project, Gateway Sewer Project. The Beautification Committee sounds like a small thing, but that is a huge amount of work. And I'd say that there's been a lot of progress made in that particular section from 29 coming over the bridge and down through Lowe's, because it's the part that customers or our businesses see and future businesses take a look at. And finally, just managing the 13 active business incentives we've got. We also try to help market the Brockman Park as well as our own anytime we have an opportunity to do that. And then we kind of talk about here business assistance with companies that will come to us and say, we're trying to grow, how do we deal with this or that? So there's a lot of behind the scenes advice that really Victoria and Lori take care of for us. That's all I've got today, but I would, want to hit again and really appreciate your partnership. You guys have been great to work with. It makes, honestly, working on the EDA a whole lot of fun, and I think it really is helping push our county in a new direction. Any questions for me?
Board? We certainly appreciate the work that you do for the county and appreciate you coming and speaking with us today.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the budget discussion. Mr. Bryant.
Okay, they slipped out too fast, but I really wanted to also say thanks to the EDA, their staff, and the folks on the board. It's really exciting to see the great things that the Economic Development Authority is doing, and it's been fun to be a part of all of their progress. The budget discussion today generally is going to be focused on our supplemental request, and so we'll focus on that. But first, just a reminder, the budget summary as of today, the revenues are at $56,156,638, and our expenditures are $139,455 less of that. So I think that's an important piece to start with. And that's probably the most important slide. The second most important slide is this. At least in my mind. And this breaks down what we and you'll understand we typically refer to as the cut line. So these are your supplemental budget requests. This is a worksheet. This would include my recommendations to you. And it's a little complicated, so I'll try to explain it so it's easy to understand. This was your list that you've ranked, the supplemental budget request in order. I've recommended so going down the list, the first item is the 2 dispatcher positions. I'm recommending that we fund that, and we can fund that with 911 money. That's a reoccurring money that we already have, so that's not getting into our general fund. So I recommend that we would fund that position. The second position would be the fire marshal position. I spent a lot of time talking to Chief Beam about how that could work. Moving things around in terms of expenses, salary. And so I am recommending that we fund that. That would be with our reoccurring funds, $95,000. That's including salary and benefits. Salary would be somewhere around $72,000 to start out with. The third item and fourth item are both the merit pay and the 457B match. And I'd like to tell you and thank you that you've been very generous in supporting both bringing the employees to market in the proposed budget, if it's accepted, and also the recommendation of a 7% cost of living adjustment. So it's my recommendation that we move both the merit pay and the 457B match to the proposed FY25 for discussion. Doesn't obligate you, doesn't lock you in. It would move those 2 out a year for us to discuss where we're at as a county at that time. And then the next item is the code enforcement officer on Route 29. We work closely with the Virginia Department of Transportation, who often has contracts that clean up the bypass, clean up certain sections of roads in Amherst County. Also, we've had a lot more communication with the Sheriff's Department on getting more people out, more inmates out to clean the roads. The roads are a major problem. They're a major problem, and I don't think this solves all of our problems, but I think it puts a person on the ground that we can call to, that we can get out when there's a bag of trash that blows out, and work the corridor, work mainly our gateways. The idea was the Route 29 corridor, since it's one of our major gateways. This person would be under Public Works, but it would be a full-time position that would do nothing but pick up trash and do anything that is Route 29 related. So oftentimes there's major weeds, woody species growing through the medians. There's areas that need to be cleaned up, and there's areas that just look terrible. And we would like for this position to do all those things, and we think that would make a major difference in the corridor. And then finally, the last item that I'm recommending that we fund is the Mill Creek Park attendants. These are part-time positions. These generally are from within the summer months. We've had a major increase in attendance at Mill Creek in terms of usage because of all the things we've put there, the beach, the swing jump, and there's plans for more items at Mill Creek Lake. So this funded for Mill Creek Lake is coming from a sustainability fund. So this is not general fund money. This is part of that sustainability fund money that was funneled through, and there's certain earmarks, and I'll get to that later on how that money can be used. So 2 of these positions, the dispatcher position and the Mill Creek Lake, are coming from funds that have to be used for certain specifications. 2 of them would be general fund, that would be the fire marshal and the code enforcement officer, and then 2 of them I'm asking you to move off. Okay, so everything under the Mill Creek Park attendant would not be funded, would not be recommended for funding. So again, this is my recommendation. You can change it, you can do with what you want. Any questions on this before I move to the next slide? This is my recommendation, so I'm gonna come back to this, but this is my recommendation to you. Okay. So some of this you've heard. So funding not from the general fund would be the 2 dispatch positions, which was the #1 board priority. It would be coming from E911 reoccurring funding that's available. And the Mill Creek Park attendants, which is the #6 priority, is coming from forest sustainability funding that's for the FY 2024. We anticipate that this number could likely go up next General Assembly. We've heard even up to $1 million potentially, but we don't know yet. Do we know yet? I don't think we know yet. Okay. So the question for you is, do you want to move forward with these funding, these requests as described? And are there other options? Are there things that you as a board want to see done differently? Okay, so let me get into that just a little bit. So we have about $139,000 that's available. We've talked about the deputy fire marshal position, the Route 29 position, and then the reoccurring funds that we've talked about. Okay, to give you a glimpse of, and I think it's important to talk about where you could find funding from, okay? So one option is personal property tax ratio. So and remember, in the proposed budget that I presented to you a few weeks ago, we proposed doing a reduction of the cost of personal property, okay? 1%, so we did a 20% reduction, 1% is $137,000, okay? Now, we only collect about 95% collection rate. So in reality, we're closer to 130,000. So 1% really is closer to 130,000 based on what we collect, okay? So if you back from that 80% that I mentioned to that I've proposed to you, you could reduce to an 85% ratio, and that would increase your budget ratio, your budget revenues to $653,000. You'd be returning $1.9 million back to the citizens. Or you could go a 90% reduction, okay? Budget revenues would increase to $1.3 million, and return to the citizen goes down to $1.3 million. This is not part of my recommendation, but this is an option to you, okay? My recommendation to you is the 80% that we talked about previously. Any questions about this? I'm just trying to show you another funding, how you could fund other things if you so choose to, if you wanted to go down that list further. Okay? So there's some things to consider. Will the schools continue to work with the $2.5 million currently budgeted?
I have an update.
You do have an update?
He told me today they stuck with that.
Okay. The schools stuck with that
They
number?
stuck with the
Okay.
2.5. I just talked to Dr. Wells and all earlier.
Okay. And then are there other items on the supplemental list of reoccurring projects that cannot currently be funded that you as the board want funded? And how will you do so? So I gave you an option. So that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions for you? I'm recommending back to that third slide that I showed you. That's my recommendation to you. But are there other things that you would like to do differently?
Board?
Well, so Jeremy, with all of these things that you said there was $135,000 available, $139,455 available, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that after including what you just put forward before us? No, it is not. Okay.
No.
All right, well, I've got some comments, I certainly think this budget has taken care of our employees with a 7% raise. I think everybody should be happy with that. We funded the salary study as well, is that correct?
That's correct.
So that's another area that we've taken care of our employees. I can sit here and say I'm not inclined to raise any taxes or change any of the funding items you have put forward. I know that the fire marshal last year was not funded. We seem to have operated okay without it. We haven't had it in the previous 200 years the county has been around, or however many it may be. This is a roughly six-figure job, so it does have a major impact. Landfill operations and costs have not been hashed out yet on moving forward. That's could be an additional expense that we deal with in the very near future. There's been even talk that time that it's available could be lower than what's expected if we move forward in any of these economic development areas. Adding more personnel always means more salary, benefits, and administration cost. These additional hires could ultimately lead to financial difficulty in the coming years, and higher taxes. We're suffering from high inflation at the moment. We all see it. Ultimately, that's a sign of uncertainty in the economic environment. And the potential of a recession is a real concern. Just today, I believe the Federal Reserve had a meeting, and they are going to be raising rates. So as rates rise, of course, that means interest rates rise, the economy slows down, and hopefully not come to a halt. But it will slow down, and we will have issues dealing with that. Our families are certainly struggling to maintain their current standard of living, especially with higher grocery bills, utility bills, power, water, sewer, you name it. It certainly has been a cause of frustration and pain for many people. All of these items are warranted. I can't say that they're all in goodwill. There's no doubt about it. They could all be used. I think the two dispatchers, is that already funded, or is that not funded at this point?
It can be funded with 911 money that's reoccurring money.
Okay, that would be something that I think we should highly consider. That's something that deals with public safety. As far as the fire official or any other additional hires, I do not think we need to hire any more at this point. I just think that we're setting ourselves up for a big tax increase in the coming years. In December, groceries were up 11.8% year over year. I think it's higher than that. Everyone's seen the problems that we've had. With us taking care of our employees with the raise and the salary increase, I think we should refrain from hiring any additional employees. I think the one that really could be needed and justified is the additional person to pick up trash. I don't know how much that would do per se, but before we did that, I certainly would like to have a conversation with our sheriff's department and the inmate workforce crew. It seems as if they haven't been as heavily involved in cleaning our roads as they have been. So with that, I'll let anyone else who wishes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. Mr. Wade?
I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Pugh as far as the fire marshal is concerned. I mean, we've operated this long without it. I get it's more proactive than reactive, but at this point, I think we're better off saving that money for something else or whatnot. Big thing I want to harp on is the Route 29 corridor code enforcement officer. Obviously, what we're doing today isn't working. I mean, there's litter everywhere. So I would like to continue looking into that. This role here, I know it's recurring cost, but if say we do fund this position and it doesn't work out, we can always kill it later, correct? So I'd still like to move forward with that one if possible.
Mr. Harris?
Well, I'll reiterate as far as the condition of our roadways and what our county looks like, and it's pretty embarrassing. It's been a long time since I've seen it appear as it does now, and it doesn't have to be that way. I think we spend about $1.8 million a year to house inmates in that facility down off of 210 connector, and I think think I have a little bit of knowledge to know that they are accessible to be utilized to a certain extent. And a lot of those guys enjoy giving back to the community in the way they have in the past. And whatever we need to do to clean our community up, I support that 100%. I'm not in favor of I want to try to keep personal property rates as they were last year. I think of anything that we as a board saw that our citizens were upset with were the 2 years in a row, basically their personal property taxes continue to rise. And I'd like to see us work with our Commissioner of Revenue and see if we can get those tax rates where they will be pretty much hopefully level this year. And our citizens, I know it's hard to get the exact target because of the way used vehicles are increasing. So whatever recommendation, I think last year she recommended 25 and we did 20. If we'd have done the 25, we probably would have hit pretty close to being where we should be. And I'm just not in favor of not trying to work the best we can to level out that personal property tax. And I know as far as the fire marshal, I think there's been some very preliminary discussions about additional personnel needed just to cover additional positions to serve our county as EMS folks. I know that we are an aging population here in the county. Our numbers will say that, and I have said that for several years now that these folks need to be taken care of. And if you monitor some of the radio traffic, sometimes we're still depending on Lynchburg a lot of times to take calls for us because all of our staff and units are tied up. So I think that's something that we're going to have to look at is to make sure that we got the apparatuses in place and the people to take care of our people that pay these bills for us. So, that's my feeling at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Can you put the slides back? Go to the very first, right there. So revenues, we have 56.157 million, right? Expenditures, 56.08, okay. So that leaves 139,455, right? So then if you go to the next slide, you are proposing to fund, is it $711,000 worth? How much are you proposing to fund?
No, I'm proposing, well,
138.2.
138.2, 138.2, which is just the fire marshal and the code enforcement officer, because the other two are from reoccurring funds that have to be earmarked for specific purposes. So really 4 positions total. The 2 dispatcher are with 911 money.
Yeah, that money's already there.
Correct, and reoccurring. And the Mill Creek Park attendant is money already there. That's, as far as we know, is reoccurring, should be reoccurring and much greater next year. So those are,
So you're asking to fund the fire marshal at 95,000,
that's including benefits,
okay, and
and the code enforcement
at,
at 43.
$38.2.
38.2.
2, yeah, yes, sir.
Then if you go back to the previous slide, so you would drop that down to like 1,000 and some
Yeah,
dollars.
1,200.
So the budget would be balanced,
It
but
would be balanced, yes.
But it's very little
Very tight.
wiggle room.
No wiggle room.
I don't feel very comfortable with that personally.
okay, can you go back to the next slide? Yeah. So is the board comfortable with doing the 2 dispatcher positions and the code enforcement officer
And the Mill Creek.
and Mill Creek? I'm sorry.
Dispatcher positions I'm fine with because the 911 reoccurring funds will compensate that. So I'm
Yeah,
totally good with that.
I'll agree with that one.
Okay, so everybody's fine with the dispatchers. Let's go to Mill Creek. Is everybody okay with that?
Okay with that, yes, sir.
All right, code enforcement, 29 corridor. Mr. Pugh?
given that it can be canceled if it's not working out, so.
Yeah, I mean, it is a problem, there's no doubt about that. I certainly have seen in the past where we did have inmates working on that a lot more than they have been. I will give credit where credit is due. I did see some inmates down there the other day picking trash on that corridor right on 29.
So why are the inmates not going out as much? Are there not positions in the sheriff's office to do it?
My understanding is there's a couple factors. One, sometimes those folks get pulled off into court. So that's one factor, the folks that are overseeing the inmates. The other factor has been, interestingly enough, a reduction in the number of qualified inmates that can go out. And I've just started to sit on the Blue Ridge Regional Jail Board, the number of inmates has greatly reduced that they once had because of a number of state law changes. And the state has pulled inmates from the regional jails and put them in state facilities. So the number of inmates in our regional jail is reduced, and so that's a factor. Now, I'm not here to tell you, I can tell you all the answers, but these are some of the factors that I've heard as to why they're struggling to get inmates out consistently.
I have a question. The fines and forfeiture revenue that come in through the sheriff's department, is that just thrown right directly into the general fund?
No, they appropriate it out and use it as
I know,
they-
but our portion, because we get, what, how
You get
much?
20%, but we've set that aside for parks. It goes into a reserve every year. Then you guys spend it when you want to. It's not a lot in there right now because we kind of drained it a couple of years ago. I can get that number for you.
I was just thinking that would be a way to fund that position, but
I'm not sure you would have quite enough to fund it right now. I can do some research for you, though.
Ms. McBride, could you give us a synopsis of the last 12 months, what fine revenue has been produced in the county? And we used to get it pretty much monthly. I don't know what happened to that. When there was a request out of it, we would see a balance left, and we haven't seen that for a while. But could you do maybe the last 12 months and show us?
What's come in and what's gone out?
Exactly.
Sure. I will say this, that the reduction somewhat in fine revenue has been the fact that the state changed the law last year. You can no longer punish someone for not paying their fine. You can't take their license, you can't put a restriction on their registration or anything like that. So that has slowed a lot of collection. I've heard from,
That has decreased it some, but, you know,
Yes.
the state also made parameters as far as other ways to collect that money, if need be. But it would be interesting to see what our numbers have been for the last 12 months.
I'll be glad to do that.
I know that in the last few weeks it seemed to be increasing, but I'd like to see it for the last 12 months.
Okay, so it sounds like the board's in agreement on the two dispatchers and on the Mill Creek park attendants, because they're funded out of separate pots.
Yes, sir.
If we went with the code enforcement 29 corridor, that's roughly $43,200 plus a one-time cost of $35.
Sir.
For a vehicle and equipment.
Back to the previous slide, that's,
About 90, you're right at 94,000, 96,000.
I'm going to tell you what my concern is with the code enforcement position is I think you're going to be expecting a great deal for one person to go out and cut weeds and pick up trash and all on the 29 corridor, and it's going to be a very dangerous position. I think there's going to be a lot of liability there for the county to try and have this person out there on the roadways picking up trash by themselves. You know, we talked about having them put out traffic. I don't see that working. I really don't. I know some other localities have in the past used a position like this, that they hired someone with previous law enforcement service where they were able to go get the inmates themselves, and they ran the crews. I'm not sure if that's an option here or not. But I agree, we have to do something. I really don't think this position is going to fix it. I really don't. If the board wants to try it, fine, but what's your pleasure? Do you want to move forward with it or not?
Like my fellow board members, obviously, if this position is not working, we don't see it producing anything. I think if there's one individual, like I know a lot of our storm drains are full of road sediment. At least I feel like we could contract a company, whether it's VDOT, where they have the equipment to do that. We know they make trucks with the sweepers and vacuum to clean these and keep these, at least storm drains, clean, and you know, maybe try to coordinate as far as sections of the roadway with VDOT to clean. We've got to do something. I mean, it is absolutely appalling to look at, you know, the corridor, and, you know, whether is this going to work? We can't sit here and, you know, say, is it not? We don't know, but I feel like we have a person that has a strong initiative to do the job and work with folks at VDOT, whether we have to contract someone with the sweeper machines to go along and clean these storm gutters and drains and along the center curb and all that stuff that has gotten against them, and, you know, just the coordination with VDOT to try to work something. I mean, I think it's worth a try, Mr. Chairman. We got to do something.
So is there consensus we leave the personal property reduction at 80%?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there consensus we move forward with the 2 dispatcher positions, the code enforcement position, and the Mill Creek Park attendants?
Yes.
All right, that's consensus, that's your direction, Mr.
Thank you.
Bryant. All right, next item on the agenda is County Administrator's Report.
Okay, sorry about that, my computer fell asleep. Okay, the first item is just to make you aware, no actions needed. The boards, commission, committees that are experiencing folks that are getting ready to go off. Building Appeals Board, Kenneth Campbell, his term expires April the 30th. Library Board of Trustees has 3 members that their term expires June the 30th. And the Social Services Board has a member that expires also June the 30th. So if we will do our recruitment efforts internally, just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. Again, no actions needed from you, but if you know anyone that would serve on these committees or wants to reapply, they just need to simply write a letter to myself or to Mrs. Freeman, and we will get them back before you.
Thank you, sir. Project status?
Okay. Yeah, in front of you is the project status report. Don't intend to go over this line by line. If there's any questions that you have for me, I'm here to answer your questions.
Any questions?
Sir.
All right, County Attorney, Mr. Popovich.
I have nothing, sir.
So much. All right, the next item would have been a report on Ms. Tucker and her being a liaison to the school board. She is not here, so I suggest we move on. The next item would be citizen comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board? Anyone that'd like to address the board? All right, hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to matters from the board. Mr. Pugh?
Yes, I have something, and Mr. Ayers may have received a complaint as well. But I received a call regarding Walls Ferry Crossing in Neola. It seems that Georgia Pacific, or the Big Island Paper Mill, is having issues with the bridge that takes them over to the landfill on Old Company Road off of Walls Ferry exit. And they are running dump trucks on Walls Ferry crossing constantly, day in and day out. And I've gotten complaints from people in the neighborhood that they're running people off the road, that the road is in deteriorating condition. It's just changed the whole atmosphere of the community up there, and they were wondering if there was anything that we could do or help them with to get their peace back. And so I'm just bringing it forward today and seeing what can happen, or maybe what the problem is, or if it can be solved.
Heard about that?
We have heard about it. We've started to address it from a staff perspective, so we'll get back to you on the status of that.
Mr. Wade?
One thing to follow up on is the bridge naming. I don't know if you've heard from VDOT, any of
I
them.
sent him an email and copied you on it, and he didn't respond, so I'll follow back up again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes, sir, I got two things. We stopped the other night regarding lighting around the Madison Heights Library, that it was really dark down there if you're leaving in the evening to walk out. So the next night or second night after, I rode down there, and it's obviously pretty dark. So, Mr. Bryan, I don't know what we could do, but it's truly a safety concern. And I know there's very limited property around that building that the county owns, but could we at least try some high-intensity LED light packs? The old ones that are there now in that building are pretty dim. Whether we could maybe upgrade the lighting packs on that building and look at maybe a pole light or two, at least along the sidewalk as you come out of that building over to the shopping center parking lot. But definitely something needs to be done to get that area better lit than what it currently is. Second thing, I received an email the other night from a lady who is related, and she stated that we had a county resident related to the Winfrey family. Said she was born on May the 27th, 1911, and if she'd have lived to May, she would have been 112 years old. Probably one of the oldest residents we've had, in the county, and she was asking if maybe the board could recognize this lady. Said she passed away on February the 24th at 111 years old. I have emailed her back early this morning and asked her to give me some further information on her as to what part of the county that she lived in, but she was a relative to the Winfrey family, who most of those folks lived in the Raglan Road, around Rose Chapel areas where a lot of the Winfreys lived in our community. So she was a direct relative to them. So I will forward that information to you, Mr. Bryan, and I would hope the board members that we could do some type of a little resolution or something to recognize this lady as a resident of our community for 111 years. It's pretty remarkable.
Okay, and I have one. In 2020, the board approved a special use permit for a truck storage lot on 29 South, just south of 151. It's been a little over 2 years, and they have been using the facility, yet they have not carried forth with any of the things that were on the site plan that was shown to us in terms of an entrance that would be approved by VDOT, landscaping. Just going by the site, it looks like an erosion and sediment control nightmare. Silt fences are down. It's definitely not what this board approved. And quite frankly, I don't think they have any desire or intent to do what they told the board they would do. So I'm requesting staff to look into that, formulate a recommendation to this board on whether or not we should revoke that special use permit. And that is all. If there are no other items from the board, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.